What if something you believe is a serious sin is completely normal somewhere else in the world? Imagine two people performing the exact same action. In one culture, it is condemned as immoral, even dangerous to the soul. In another, it is ordinary, sometimes even sacred. Eating certain foods, drinking alcohol, worshiping images, fighting in war across religions and cultures, the moral meaning of these actions changes dramatically. So this raises a deeper question. Are moral rules truly universal, or are they shaped by history, culture, and belief? For thousands of years, religions have tried to answer this by defining what counts as sin and what leads to virtue. Philosophers have debated whether morality exists as an objective truth or whether it depends on human perspectives. And in recent decades, scientists have begun studying morality in an entirely different way, examining how our brains make ethical decisions, how emotions like guilt and shame influence behavior, and whether moral instincts might even have evolutionary roots. So if you're curious about why the same action can be called a sin in one place and sacred in another, stay with me in this video. In many religions, sin is understood as a moral or spiritual failure, especially when it involves disobeying divine commands. The Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, generally define sin as a conscious violation of God's will. In Islam, the Quran repeatedly emphasizes that God can forgive many sins, but associating partners with God, known as shirk, is considered the gravest offense. Judaism also sees sin primarily as breaking God's commandments or committing injustice within society. In Christianity, the word sin is often explained as missing the mark, meaning failing to live according to God's moral law. The story of Adam and Eve is often interpreted as humanity's first act of disobedience, symbolizing the human tendency to fall short of divine standards. However, not all religions describe moral wrongdoing in the same way. In Hinduism, there is no single word that exactly corresponds to the Western idea of sin. Instead, concepts like pap, meaning harmful action, and adharma, meaning violation of cosmic order or duty, are used to describe moral faults. In this tradition, wrongdoing is often understood in terms of karma. Actions that disturb harmony or violate one's responsibilities create negative consequences that affect future lives. Hindu scriptures and cultural traditions include many moral rules, some of which reflect historical conditions. For example, the protection of cows became an important moral principle partly because cattle were essential to agriculture and survival in ancient India. Buddhism approaches morality differently from most theistic religions. Rather than focusing on sin against a divine lawgiver, Buddhist teachings emphasize the difference between wholesome and unwholesome actions. These are evaluated according to whether they reduce suffering or increase it. Instead of asking whether an act violates God's command, Buddhist ethics asks whether an action arises from harmful states like greed, hatred, or ignorance. Because of this, some scholars say Buddhism has no exact equivalent to the concept of sin. Instead, actions are judged by their consequences in the cycle of karma and rebirth. Sikhism presents yet another perspective. The Sikh scripture uses the word pap for sin, but the tradition strongly emphasizes that all events occur within the divine order known as hukam. According to the teachings of Guru Nanak, ritual ideas about sin and merit are less important than cultivating virtues aligned with God's will. In practice, Sikhs strongly discourage actions associated with ego, greed, and dishonesty. They also reject idol worship and prohibit intoxicants such as alcohol, seeing them as distractions from spiritual awareness. In many indigenous traditions around the world, the concept of sin as disobedience to a single divine lawgiver does not exist in the same form. Instead, moral wrongdoing is often understood as breaking a taboo or disturbing the balance between humans, nature, and the spirit world. For example, failing to perform certain rituals or violating community rules might be seen as bringing misfortune or angering ancestral spirits. In such cultures, morality often emphasizes harmony within the community, rather than individual guilt before God. These differences become clearer when we look at specific actions. Eating pork is forbidden in both Islam and Judaism, but it is generally allowed in Christianity and most other religions. In contrast, many Hindus avoid eating beef because the cow is considered sacred. Alcohol is strictly prohibited in Islam and Sikhism, while most Christian traditions allow moderate consumption and even use wine in religious rituals. Idol worship is condemned in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam because of their strict monotheism. But in Hinduism and parts of Buddhism, statues and images are commonly used as aids for devotion and meditation. Even attitudes toward warfare vary. Some religions permit fighting in defense or justice, while others emphasize strong ideals of nonviolence. So if religions disagree about what counts as sin, does that mean morality itself is relative? Or is there a deeper moral truth beneath all these traditions? Because once we leave religion and enter philosophy, the debate becomes even more intense.